Hi, to clarify what I had read in your comments, I'm going to speak quickly and rapidly and try to make everything as clearly as possible in the next few minutes. Um, I believe you may not have read, not just read, but seen part two. I have a part two for this, and I believe also in part one I have the same, you know, point is that by saying that, God is not a man, by determining that God can never be a man by the statement that God is not a man is invalid. I believe it's invalid. Because to be a man and not a man are like you say are almost two different things. Because being a man is in the physical form of a man. But to say that God is not a man and then he should not lie, though he doesn't change his, and by the verse, he doesn't, it says that God does not change his mind. God, you gotta realize, men do such a thing. Men change their mind. Men lie. Men do things that God will never ever do. The Bible says that God will never change. God, when he speaks, it clearly shows that when God makes a decision, it's final. Usually, most of the time, it has been final. I can honestly say that by text, by reading, there have been a few times when, especially talking to Moses, that God has actually repented from bringing judgment upon Israel. And the reason why not bringing judgment upon Israel in that moment was that Moses had said to God, like, if you were to bring judgment upon Israel, then you would not be perceived as this gracious, loving, merciful God that you are, but you would be perceived as a vengeful, judgmental God, and in I believe Moses is saying, like, yes, you are these things, but to bring us out of Egypt under the tyranny of Pharaoh, but to destroy us away from Pharaoh, that wouldn't be a good display of like your grace, love, and mercy that you have. And basically you're bringing us from one bondage. If you were to destroy us, you basically would, why wouldn't you just keep us there? You brought us out, to do something more glorious. So like, don't destroy us, because you would be contradicting yourself in a sense. See what I mean? Anyways, to say that God, by the verse, saying that God is not a man, by implying that God cannot be a man, is just wrong, I believe, because the Bible shows that someone from antiquity, someone from everlasting, Micah 5:2, for example, says that someone would come in that shape and form, in the form of a man from out of a tribe, and will have attributes. Basically, if it comes out of a specific tribe, it's saying that it's a human. In the book of Jeremiah, it says, that the basically the Messiah, I believe it's Jeremiah 33 verses 17 and 18. It shows that the Messiah would have basically a kingship, would be on the throne of David. That's in verse 17, and then in verse 18 would have like basically be able to have like the priesthood, of the Levites. And this is, you could say, I believe that it's just like Melchizedek back in like Genesis when Abraham gave a tithe, because Melchizedek was not just only a priest, but he was also a king. And then in the New Testament, it shows us again, like it says that Jesus has this kingship but also priesthood, like Melchizedek. So if and hold on, not if, but let me go to another thought. And also Isaiah 7:14, it says that a virgin shall have a child, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. Well, in Hebrew, Emmanuel means God with us. Does that, we have to ask yourself, does that literally mean that God will be with us? Or what? I believe that's what it means, that literally it means that God will be with us. But does it, when it comes to the text, do you believe that God will come down here on earth and be present with man? If you don't believe that, then I don't know what to tell you, because throughout the Bible, it shows us that this will happen. Okay? In the law and in the prophets and in the Psalms, 3 books that we both agree with, that it will show that the Messiah, who is of God, who is from God, who is God, will come down and be with man. And Jesus, he talks about this. He talks about it. He's on the people that were going to Emmaus. It's called the Emmaus Road story. That Jesus had talked to them about the law of Moses and the prophets. The law of Moses. What they talk about when they refer to Moses is everything from Genesis, all the way up to Deuteronomy. The last book of those first 5 books. That are considered the Torah. And then all the prophets, or every prophet that's mentioned in the Bible, every prophet, even Moses, because Moses was considered a prophet. Abraham was considered a prophet, because it says, in Genesis that that Abraham, he's a prophet. Even Isaiah, Ezekiel, any prophet mentioned, anyone that said anything referring to the Messiah, it's there. To be honest, I believe that some of the Psalms were written by prophets. Because in the New Testament, especially in the book of Acts, it consistently refers back to the law, the books of Moses and the prophets, over and over and over again. They said that they reasoned with the Pharisees and stuff, through the law and the prophets. Even in just the Gospels, another book, you could say a 4th book that we agree upon, shows this, that it shows that, because it shows at one point, I don't know what chapter, but I believe it's in Matthew or somewhere. But if you just look it up, it's about how Jesus had said to his disciples, go and get this colt, a donkey, and bring it to me. And if they asked, why are you doing this, just tell them that the Lord needs it, and they'd be willing to give it to you. So they were willing to give it to him at that point, and they refer back to one of the prophets. I believe it's Ezekiel, but I honestly, by the top of my head, I could be wrong. That it's a manifestation of what the prophet had said, that the Messiah would come into Jerusalem riding on a donkey. Riding on it, in the King James it says ass, which was referred to a donkey. So, there are bits and pieces that refer back to the prophets, that refer back to Moses. And, in the book of Acts, let me just close this up one more time. When it refers back to Moses, and the prophets, Acts 3 verse 22 and Acts 7 verse 37, use the same exact verse, and within context of both those chapters, they're both those men, Peter in Acts 3 and Stephen in Acts 7, are both referring to Jesus Christ. They're not referring to Muhammad. They're not referring to anybody else. But they're what they understand from what's going on is this is coming from Moses, and Moses is saying that Jesus is this prophet that's going to come out of Israel, not the way that's perceived out of you guys, by saying that that it's Muhammad, basically, because it says brothers, I believe in the actual text, coming from one of your brothers, and it's not from Ishmael. It's within the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what it's referring to. And both of these people are pointing towards one direction, and they're pointing to Jesus Christ. And they're actually, in the time when they're speaking to the Pharisees. So, once again, I mean, you heard a few things, but to conclude that God cannot be a man in the form of man is fallacy, because that takes away the sovereignty of who he is. That doesn't take away his holiness, because God can be holy in anything, because God is holy. You know, God is ultimately righteous. You know, there's nothing that can change him. You know, and for him to be in the form of a man is humble. It's humbling. I mean, take some thought. You know, to really think, if God is all sovereign, why can't he be in the form of anything that he chooses to be? You know, why? You know, if God is all sovereign, you know, why does, you know, and if he wants people to come to him, why does he even use us, man, to preach the word to people? You know, because he can do it himself. He can manifest in any which way, shape, or form that he wants to. But he, you know, in essence, you know, in the long run, he chooses to use his creation to bring about his glory, and he's choosing to use us to manifest, you know, everything about to manifest him. So all I'm doing, I'm trying to show you the truth, man. So take it as you will. But to limit God and say that he can never be a man, just because the Bible says that God is not a man, you know, it's just wrong. Because, like I said, the Bible states that God will come down in the form of a man. You know, he will have the kingship of David, and he will have the priest, and also have the priesthood of the Levites. You know, he would be the head priest, and it's like Melchizedek, that was in Abraham's time. So God bless. You know, I pray that Jesus Christ will be manifested to you, and I pray that through your studying of, you know, the law and the prophets, things will open up. Your eyes will open up and see the truth, and you know, you'll step away from, you know, the bondage that you're in, I believe. So God bless and have a great day.